Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. What's the stupidest thing that's ever scared the hell out of you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. This morning around 3 a.m., I'm walking my dog. It's dark and rainy, and I'm still a little twitchy from the fitful sleep I was getting before she woke me up. As I'm passing this dumpster, something catches my attention. As I turn my attention, I can see that there's a head-shaped sphere bobbing and rotating inside the dumpster. It's dark, and my panicked eyes are having trouble locking in, but I can definitely make out two distinct features: wide-set eyes and a mouth. Immediately, the hairs on my neck and arms stood straight up. It feels like I've been struck by lightning, but my feet are glued to the ground. I stand there, looking at this abomination, aghast. I'm desperately trying to get my eyes to focus on it while being as still as the Sphinx, just in case its vision was based on movement. Finally, the spell breaks, and I quickly strafe a wide arch around the dumpster and safely make it back home, where I lock both deadbolts and turn on all the lights. It takes me a good hour or so to get back to sleep. This morning, I learned and leashed up my dog and walked back outside. Feeling intrepid in the daylight, I decided to investigate. I strap up a nice, hefty hunting knife and walk wearily back toward the dumpster. That's when I saw it again. The culprit? It was a halfway deflated helium birthday balloon. The face I saw was Dora the Explorer. From where I sleep, I can see the light of the modem in the living room, a one-bedroom apartment. In the dark of the night, all I can see is that one little green dot. One time it went out. The only thing I could think about was what was standing between it and me. I was walking home from a friend's birthday party, distracted by the thoughts in my head and still pretty drunk. I took a shortcut through the park. There were no lights, and the night was cloudy. In the darkness, it seemed as though there were creatures moving around me, shadows that would shift, but it was too dark to really make anything out. So to prove to myself it was just my imagination, I stopped and yelled into the darkness. Immediately there was a response, an explosion of fluttering wings. I had walked into the middle of 100 sleeping ducks that were now airborne and nearly had a heart attack. 1995. I was staying in a bad section of New Orleans at a friend's house. I grew up in a really small town in the Northeast, so I was really kind of worried to be out at 3 or 4 a.m. in a pretty bad neighborhood in a huge city. Anyhow, I spent all night getting drunk in the French Quarter, and after a long walk home, I finally got to the house. I hear a really loud old vehicle going slowly down the street. I watched a lot for rap videos and movies, so I was a little scared because of all the drive-bys. I get through the gate and walk up the steps as the sound gets closer. I turn quickly around as I tried to get the key in and get the F into the apartment. I saw some black guy with his arm out toward me in the bed of his pickup. My heart is pounding. I felt something hit me in the leg. I looked down. It was the morning newspaper. Playing the American Idol karaoke game alone in my living room late at night. I'd had a few drinks. Both the game and the projector were pretty new. I wasn't quite used to the setup just yet. After I'd finished singing a few songs, there was a pause in the game. I decided to relax for a second. I let down my guard a little, took a breath, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw, oh, what the F. There's a big black guy on the patio looking in at me. What the F? And for a split second, I mistook Randy Jackson's reflection on my patio's sliding door for some kind of lurking thug. Randy Jackson scaring someone seems like an improbable thing, but I guess in the context, yeah, that could be scary, so good job, dog. When I was in middle school, my parents would leave the house for work earlier than I would leave to catch the bus. One morning I had to dry a shirt before I headed out, so I set the dryer on and continued to get ready. The dryer stopped, so I went to get the shirt. I opened the door and there was nothing there. It was clear inside. My pulse quickened, my mind went over every possible terrifying explanation. I was completely convinced that a burglar or ghost took my shirt from the dryer, and there was no one home to save me from whatever horrible things they were going to do next. Thankfully, before I started crying, I took another glance into the dryer, and the shirt was sitting right where it should be, after it lost static and stopped clinging to the top of the dryer. Close call. I was with my friends and it was around 11 p.m. We had been drinking and decided to go for a walk in the pitch black woods. Mind you, this is Upper Michigan, where wildlife, bears, coyotes, etc. are extremely prevalent, and it's so dark you can't see your hand in front of your face. My friend tried to get a flashlight, and I proceeded to call him a huge bitch, and we went on without one. About 5 minutes away from his house, out in the middle of the boonies, he turned around and went back, at which point I reminded him he was a bitch and kept going. I walked for probably a good hour or so, and my buzz started to wear off. Then it kind of hit me that what I was doing was extremely stupid. The walk that had originally taken me an hour took me 3 times as long on the way back. The worst part was when I was 100 yards from his house and could see the fire in the distance when I spotted what I thought was an effing bear. I stopped dead in my tracks and started to hyperventilate. I forced myself to sit down before I passed out and controlled my breathing. I was staring at this effing bear, which was not more than 15 yards away from me. Every now and then, it would move and I would tweak the F out. I probably stayed completely motionless for a good hour or so before I sacked up and tiptoed my ass back to the fire to tell my tale. We then proceeded to get a flashlight and discover that the bear was an effing bush and I was in fact a gigantic monster of a pussycat, my friend's words. I was paralyzed by a bush for an hour. I have a full-sized bed, and I was curled up all the way on one side of it. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard the most terrifying sound I've ever heard. The high-pitched, cackling giggle of a clown, and it was lying right behind me on my bed. Well, I just about spit myself and scrambled out of bed and out of the room. I don't know how I managed it, but I stuck my head back through the door and slowly turned on the lights. My goddamn cat was curled up on the other side of the bed. He lifted his head and shot me a look of disapproval for turning on the lights. I told him to F off. I have no idea how he made that noise. I was playing Fear for the first time. I like to play at night in my blacked out room. The game had a certain creepy factor built in, as most good horror games do. A little girl is central to the plot of the game, and she pops up every now and then to keep you from getting comfortable. She has dark hair and pale skin, and generally doesn't fit in a mad scientist lab gone crazy with mutated demons and ghosts attacking all the time. I take off my headphones to take a break when I turn, and standing right behind me watching me play is the girl from the game. It turns out that my roommate had his daughter staying over that night, and she had opened my door and was standing there watching me play games for who knows how long. All I can say is that it's a good thing, but I didn't have a weapon in my hand at the time. LOL. I'm sleeping, and I get the sense that something is coming towards me. Suddenly, something heavy smacks me right in the face. I freak out, jump out of bed, and rush to turn on the lights. I look at my bed, and there's nothing there. Then I realize my entire right arm was numb. I had been sleeping on it, cutting off circulation, then rolled over and somehow raised my numb arm, presumably to regain circulation while still asleep, where it then fell on my face. Sometimes the phrase, "we are our own worst enemy," rings true, and this is a perfect example of that. Recently, my sister's employer gave away the cardboard cutouts from an old display that they were done with. She grabbed up a few, and larger-than-life cardboard cutouts of a pug trickled down to me. I set it on the couch and forgot about it. Every day since, it has been the cause of a mini heart attack every hour or so. Just long enough for me to forget about it. I finally hid it in my roommate's closet today, and after it caused me to jump and drop my hot dog. When I was a teenager, I had the rare experience of having the entire house to myself one night. Even my grandmother was out. I was upstairs reading when I heard a creak on the stairs. Since no one should have been home, I instantly went into high alert. All the hairs on my neck stood up and my ears turned to high-gain radar dishes. Seconds later, I heard another slow creak on the stairs. Someone must be slowly sneaking up the stairs. Only an intruder would try to be quiet. Shit. Robbers must have noticed there were no cars in the driveway and decided to break in. Then they saw the light upstairs. Now they're coming to kill me. FFF. I need a weapon. At the very least, I have to try to defend myself. What do I have here in my room? F. Nothing. Another creak on the stairs. I sneak into my closet and look around. Shit. The best thing I can find is an effing tennis racket. This sucks. I take it and do my best to hold it menacingly. Another slow footstep, now in the upstairs hall. I hide behind my open bedroom door, brandishing my tennis racket. Another step just outside the door. I'm shitting bricks. I tell myself the racket might do some harm if I can hit the guy with it. A soft step in the doorway. F. F, 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 F. My dog walks in the door. She looks up at me, shaking, covered in sweat, and holding a tennis racket. She cocks her head to one side. I used to have to walk home from the bus 0.4 miles through the woods and fields. I never had a problem with this until one day when I was tired and had already thrown up on the bus. I saw something about 100 yards up the road. It looked exactly like a partially decomposed alligator in Michigan, moving slowly across the road. I could see its heart beating through the open ribcage, and I knew that if I stepped closer, it would turn towards me and eat me. I was probably about a quarter mile from home when I started hollering for my dad. He, of course, couldn't hear me, and wouldn't have come if he did. I stood there, feet planted, and screamed until I threw up again and had no voice. When I finally realized no one was going to rescue me, I began moving toward it, and that is when it revealed itself to be a thick patch of dead ragweed. And leaning over the 2-track road and waving in the wind. The relief from that left me shaking, and I finally got home 45 minutes late, sick to my stomach, and with no voice. Dumb kid. When I was in high school, I spent 2 weeks every summer at a backpacking camp. At this camp, you can choose the difficulty of some of the hikes you do, and for fun, I chose to be on the hardest hike. We were going 60 miles in 4 days to visit Statue Lake. Statue Lake is the most beautiful lake I've ever seen. It's shallow, warm, and situated in a house-sized boulder field at the base of a breathtaking granite pinnacles. At the campground at this lake, there was a giant rock that our entire group was able to sleep on. Because I set up my sleeping gear last, I was on one end of the group, which is always marginally worrisome, and somehow being 25 miles away from base camp made it a little worse. Anyhow, after most of the group was asleep, and I was wishing I was asleep, I heard rocks tumbling off in the forest as if someone had knocked them over. At this point, I was a little nervous, but was able to explain what was happening with things that didn't involve me getting killed. Not nearly long enough later, I heard rocks tumbling again, but this time definitely closer to us. Now I was getting scared. I knew later I heard rocks tumbling, but this time definitely closer to us. Now I was getting scared. I knew there was something in the forest, but at least I could convince myself that it wasn't something that wanted to eat me. Then I heard it. This thing made a sound like nothing I'd ever heard before or have heard since. It kinda sounded like a cross between a cough, a caw, cleaning one's throat, and scraping 2 rusty pans together. That is the only way I can describe the sound. I was now more terrified than I had been in my entire life.